Have you ever looked at the clock and seen 11:11 so many times that it started to feel impossible to ignore? At first, it seems like a coincidence. Then it happens again and again. You wake up in the middle of the night, 11:11 appears on your phone. You glance at a receipt. The total contains 11.11. A random post gets exactly 1,111 likes the moment you see it. And suddenly a question begins to grow inside your mind. What if this means something? What if reality is trying to get your attention? For thousands of years, human beings have believed that numbers carry hidden meanings. Ancient civilizations studied them. Mystics obsessed over them. Secret societies encoded them into their teachings. And among all repeating numbers, one sequence seems to stand above the rest. 11:11, a number that has become a modern mystery. Some call it an angel number. Others call it a synchronicity. Occult traditions describe it as a doorway, a signal, a message. But what if the real meaning of 11:11 is much deeper than most people realize? What if the reason you keep seeing it has less to do with luck and more to do with awareness itself? To understand this, we need to go back, long before smartphones existed, long before digital clocks flashed repeating numbers into our daily lives. Back to the ancient world. The study of sacred numbers can be traced to some of the earliest civilizations in human history. Egyptians, Babylonians, Greeks, and countless mystical traditions believed that numbers revealed hidden structures beneath reality. To them, numbers were not merely tools for counting. They were symbols of cosmic principles, patterns that connected the visible world to invisible forces. One of the most influential figures in this tradition was the Greek philosopher and mathematician Pythagoras. Pythagoras believed that everything in existence could be understood through numerical relationships. Music, nature, human consciousness, even the movement of the stars. For his followers, numbers possessed spiritual significance, and certain numbers represented states of transformation, thresholds between one level of reality and another. This idea eventually influenced countless esoteric schools: Mysticism, alchemy, Hermetic philosophy, Kabbalah, and many of these traditions give special attention to the number 11. Why? Because 11 occupies a strange position. It stands between 10 and 12. 10 often symbolizes completion. 12 symbolizes cosmic order. But 11? 11 represents disruption, transition, a breaking of old structures. In occult symbolism, 11 is frequently associated with crossing boundaries, stepping beyond limitations, entering unknown territory. It is the number that appears when an old version of reality begins to crack, and a new one starts to emerge. Now think about what happens when 11 repeats itself. 11:11. The symbolism becomes amplified, mirrored, reflected, as if reality is pointing directly at itself. This is where things become even more interesting, because the modern fascination with 11:11 is closely connected to a psychological phenomenon known as synchronicity, a concept introduced by Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung. Jung noticed that people often experience meaningful coincidences, events that seem unrelated on the surface, yet feel deeply connected internally. You think about someone, they call moments later. You dream about a situation, then it happens in real life. You repeatedly encounter the same symbol during a major life transition. According to Jung, these experiences were not necessarily random, nor were they necessarily supernatural. Instead, they revealed a mysterious relationship between the inner world of the mind and the outer world of events. He called this synchronicity, meaningful coincidence. When people begin noticing 11:11 repeatedly, many describe exactly this feeling, a sense that something is aligning, that reality is somehow responding, that an invisible conversation is taking place. Skeptics often dismiss this immediately. They point to something called the frequency illusion, also known as the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon. Once your brain notices something, it begins spotting it everywhere. Buy a certain car, suddenly you see that car on every street. Learn a new word, suddenly everyone seems to be using it. By this explanation, 11:11 is simply a product of selective attention. Your brain notices it because it expects to notice it, and there is certainly truth to that. But here's where the story becomes fascinating. The occult perspective does not necessarily reject this explanation. In fact, many esoteric traditions embrace it, because they argue that attention itself is the mechanism. Think about that. What if the point is not that 1111 magically appears? What if the point is that your awareness is being redirected? Your attention is becoming focused, concentrated, awakened. In many mystical systems, consciousness is considered the most powerful force in existence. Where attention goes, energy flows. What you repeatedly notice begins shaping your reality. Your choices, your emotions, your perception of opportunities, your entire experience of life. From this perspective, seeing 1111 is not important because of the number itself. The number acts as a trigger, a reminder, a symbolic alarm clock, a moment that interrupts autopilot. For a few seconds you stop scrolling, you stop worrying, you stop reacting automatically, and you become aware, present, conscious. That alone can be transformative. But the symbolism of 1111 goes even further. Many occult researchers describe it as a gateway symbol. Not a physical gateway, a psychological one. Look at the shape of the numbers. 4 vertical lines, like pillars, like a doorway. Many people across cultures have independently associated 1111 with the image of a portal, a threshold between states of consciousness. The symbolism appears repeatedly in modern spiritual communities. And while interpretations differ, a common theme emerges: transition, awakening, transformation, moments when life begins moving in a new direction. Consider when people often report seeing 1111 during breakups, career changes, personal crises, spiritual awakenings, major decisions, periods of uncertainty, moments when the old story is ending, but the new story has not fully begun. The appearance of 1111 seems to cluster around these transitions. Why? Perhaps because uncertainty heightens awareness. When life becomes unstable, the mind begins searching for patterns, searching for meaning, searching for guidance, and symbols become more visible. Not because reality changed, but because perception changed. Of the most overlooked aspects of the occult meaning behind 1111. It is not about predicting the future. It is about recognizing possibility. Many people misunderstand signs. They want certainty, a guarantee, a promise that everything will work out. But genuine transformation never begins with certainty. It begins with awareness, the awareness that something must change, the awareness that a new path exists, the awareness that the person you have been is not necessarily the person you must remain. That is why so many mystical traditions focus on awakening rather than prediction. The purpose is not to tell you what will happen. The purpose is to wake you up enough to participate consciously in what happens next. And this may explain why 1111 continues to fascinate millions of people around the world. Not because everyone believes the same explanation, but because the experience touches something universal. The desire to feel connected, the desire to believe that life contains deeper meaning, the desire to know that our experiences are part of a larger story. Whether you view 1111 through psychology, spirituality, symbolism, or pure curiosity, one fact remains undeniable. It captures attention, and attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess. Every major change in your life begins there, not with action, not with opportunity, not with success, with attention, because you cannot change what you do not notice. You cannot transform what remains unconscious. You cannot move toward a new future while remaining asleep to the present moment. Maybe that is the real secret hidden inside 1111. Not that the universe is sending you a coded message, not that invisible forces are controlling your destiny, but that awareness itself is trying to emerge, calling you out of distraction, calling you out of routine, calling you to observe your life more carefully. The next time you see 1111, resist the urge to immediately search for a magical interpretation. Pause instead. Ask yourself a different question. What was I thinking about at that exact moment? What am I avoiding? What decision have I been postponing? What truth have I been refusing to face? Because the most important message may not be coming from the number. It may be coming from you. The number simply creates the pause long enough for you to hear it. And perhaps that is why 1111 continues appearing throughout history, mysticism, psychology, and popular culture. Not as proof of a hidden force, but as a symbol of a hidden possibility. The possibility that consciousness can expand, that awareness can deepen, that meaning can emerge from ordinary moments, and that sometimes the most powerful doorway you will ever encounter is not outside you. It is the one that opens within. So the next time 1111 appears on a clock, a screen, a receipt, or somewhere completely unexpected. Pay attention, not to the number, to yourself. Because whether the occult interpretation is true or not, one thing is certain: moments of awareness have the power to change lives. And perhaps that is exactly what 1111 has been trying to remind you all along.